Good evening, everyone, to those present in the room and those online. Welcome to the first of our three community consultations on AI and its impact on policing. I must say we had tremendous response from our community on the topic, which kind of helped us to reinforce the notion that this was an important topic to our community. And so as we go through these presentations or consultations, we look forward to hearing from you. We're going to start this evening with our usual land acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather and on which the region of Peel operates is within the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat nations. For thousands of years, Indigenous people have inhabited and cared for these lands and continue to do so today. We are grateful for the opportunity to work in this territory and in doing so respect the land's significance for all people in Peel. So on behalf of the Peel Police Service Board and our Governance and Human Rights Committee, it is my privilege to welcome everyone to the first of our series of community consultations on artificial intelligence in policing. These sessions mark an important milestone in this committee and for our board. As AI technologies evolve and become part of our public safety system, our responsibility is to ensure their use is fair, that it's transparent and rooted in human rights. Policing cannot and must not adopt these tools without careful guidance of governance, policy, and the voices of our communities that we serve. And so the purpose of these consultations is twofold. First, they provide an opportunity for residents, community partners, and experts to learn about how AI is being used and considered in policing. And secondly, and in fact, more importantly, they create a forum for dialogue to hear your perspectives, your concerns, and your ideas on how these tools should be governed. So tonight's session is focused on human rights in the age of artificial intelligence. And that goes at the very core of our mandate as a committee. We are here to ensure that advances in technology never come at the expense of equity, of dignity, and of trust. And so together, we will explore how safeguards, oversight, and policies can align AI use in policing with the values of fairness, accountability, and transparency. I want to thank all our speakers here this evening. I first recognize Deputy Chief Anthony Oduardi. There's also Dr. Akwaze Owusu-Pampa and Claudia McCoy, who will be leading as experts in this area and this important conversation. And I want to also thank all of you for being here, whether you're doing so virtually or you're here in the room, to help shape the framework that reflects both innovation and community well-being. But this is only the beginning. Over the next weeks, we will examine predictive policing, privacy, and data protection. Each consultation will add to the body of knowledge and dialogue that will guide our board as we establish the guardrails necessary to protect rights and build public trust. So thank you again for joining us. I look forward to the conversation ahead and to hear your perspectives on how we can ensure AI in policing serves our community rather than risk dividing it. And so I'm going to hand over to Deputy Chief Anthony Oduardi, who is going to guide us through the presentations with the different individuals who are here, and then we'll move on to the deputations, which will follow. Anthony, over to you.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, and Angela, sorry, you instructed me to come up here right at the beginning. My apologies. Made more sense this way. Thank you to everyone joining us tonight, either here in person or virtually on this very important topic related to, in this case tonight, artificial intelligence and how it impacts not just today, but the future of policing. And just as a side note, before we get into the presentation, this is neither a for or against, a pro or a con session. It's about information. It's about defining artificial intelligence, how it can be used, the impacts, and what should be considered before the respectful use of technology that includes artificial intelligence. We can go to the next slide. Is there? Okay, thank you. I can do that myself too. So there are 3 sessions in the Governance and Human Rights consultation process. Tonight's session focuses on human rights in the age of artificial intelligence. On October 14th, there's a session focused on accountability. And of course, on November 4th, a session focused on transparency with subject matter experts present to dive into each of these topics. The speakers in those sessions, and specifically for tonight, were already introduced to us by Chair Len Carby, and we will be reviewing, as you see on the screen, topics that are first and foremost when considering the use of artificial intelligence, especially in public safety. For me, I'm always asked, related to artificial intelligence, what is the most important thing police leaders and community and those who are being impacted by artificial intelligence should understand? That is, what is the literacy components? I like to think that AI literacy is very important in the information piece related to artificial intelligence, of course, but I think more of it from a mindset related to leadership in policing, leadership in public safety, and leadership in community. AI tools are evolving almost hourly. In fact, just before our presentation today, we had a discussion in the back about a police service I was helping on the West Coast looking at a multi-year strategy in relation to artificial intelligence. And we know just from the last few months that artificial intelligence is developing at a rate, according to Moore's Law, so rapidly that a 3 to 5 year plan probably would be not be sufficient. So evolving on a daily basis means that literacy, education, information must also mirror that development. Gartner defines AI literacy, in particular, as being able to use AI effectively and responsibly in society, and this is why we're here today. From a mindset application, we want to ensure that we have strategic and adaptive way of thinking that embraces the principles of our Human Rights Project, that embraces the principles of the potential impacts on the community, and of course, how it can help public safety. Tools in understanding AI are very important. However, most public safety agents, community members, will get hung up on certain artificial intelligence products when you talk about AI. For example, if you ask someone what AI is, they may say ChatGPT. They may refer to facial recognition. They may refer to a proprietary product that has impacted their lives, when in fact artificial intelligence refers to a number of technology possibilities that are either realistic or unrealistic. And I want to give you an example with what's up on the screen today. Generative AI is where a computer or technology receives input from a human and generates something new. It's at its core, that's what it is. General artificial intelligence does not yet exist. It is the addition of emotion and reasoning within that product. And so the understanding of particular AI and AI tools is very impactful in how we go forward as a police service, specifically here within the region of Peel in our community for implementing AI. There is an AI Canadian public safety context, and this is important. We've seen in the last few weeks many international developments as it pertains to the strategies and regulations, whether it's in the EU or whether it's elsewhere internationally, related to how AI is being rolled out or regulated. Here in Canada, there is a national strategy, and the proposed AI and Data Act will help guide those regulations that are to be formed. And we feel here in Peel, and with community input and with the work that you're going to hear from my esteemed colleagues beside me, will impact how those regulations will be shaped and how they can come into force. What we do know is that AI implementation, specifically at Peel Regional Police, has to be with a community-driven approach. Ms. McCoy will speak about some of the research and work that she's done for Peel Regional Police in relation to the engagement sessions, but it has to be aligned with our Human Rights Project and our 7 core principles. So, what are those principles and how do we define how we would look to implement AI? Our 7 core principles that you will see at the bottom of the screen are acknowledgement, engagement, policy guidance, monitoring and accountability, data collection, and for me, one of the most important pieces is our multi-year action plan. This is not a project that stops on a certain date, but lives in perpetuity to make sure that we implement technology and all policing services with a human rights lens. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Kwasi Wosu-Bempah.
Thank you very much. Am I audible through this microphone here? So it's fantastic. Deputy, thank you for setting that up. And I was taking notes based on what you were saying, so I hope I wasn't disturbing you too much. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and to be speaking on this topic. I was jotting down the notes after you'd made the point about AI literacy, and I think it's important to acknowledge at the outset that, depending on one's level of knowledge and perspective, you might be excited about AI or extremely terrified by it. Now, irrespective of one's feelings, AI is very much here, and it's increasingly being adopted across different fields and sectors, and obviously, given the fact that we're here tonight, policing is no different. Now, as we think about artificial intelligence, and we do so within the context of policing, it's important to recognize as well that these tools undoubtedly bring opportunities, but they also create a unique set of risks, and a unique set of risks that we have not encountered before because of how novel these technologies are. On the one hand, of course, AI can support efficiency, enhance investigative capacities, and even improve public safety outcomes. Predictive analytics, facial recognition, real-time data analysis, as examples of AI in policing, are already transforming aspects of policing around the world. But again, it's critical that we recognize that these same tools raise important human rights concerns. First, the issue of equality and non-discrimination that has just been touched upon. Policing data may not be neutral. If policing data, which is fed into, for example, predictive policing models, those are algorithms that can predict either who will engage in criminality or where criminality is likely to take place. If those algorithms are fed historical data that is replete with individual or institutional biases, then these predictive models risk repeating and reinforcing and further entrenching those biases. So we need careful safeguards. If not, we risk hardwiring discrimination quite literally into future policing practices. There is, of course, privacy and dignity. AI often relies on personal data, whether this comes from surveillance cameras, social media, or predictive databases. And once again, without limits, these can erode people's senses of safety and freedom, leaving communities feeling as though they are under constant watch. And certainly as we look around the world and we think about certain countries or regions with high levels of surveillance, we also see the implementation of many of the AI-enabled policing practices that we look at in other jurisdictions. And then, of course, we've got the matter of accountability and of justice. You need the human in the room, as we were discussing before the session. AI, importantly, cannot become a substitute for human responsibility. Decisions that are influenced by algorithms must always remain subject to human judgment, legal oversight, and the principles of fairness and justice. At some point, there needs to be a human being who takes responsibility for the outcomes of AI-enabled decisions and actions. So key is to recognize that the utilization of AI in policing is not neutral. It may not be neutral, and without guardrails, it can certainly infringe upon rights, deepen bias, and weaken public trust. This is, of course, the very trust that effective policing depends upon, and this is why it is so important that police agencies and their oversight bodies, such as their boards, engage in constructive and collaborative development of the implementation of such technologies with, for example, the populations that they serve. So what do some of these guardrails look like in the context of policing and human rights? Noted already in terms of the transparency and the accountability, a key guardrail is going to be audits for bias and discrimination, testing and monitoring, to work to identify and mitigate biases where those may exist. Thank you very much for that. I'm moving on to my next slide, and it's not up on the screen yet. Of course, when these disparities are identified, there must also be real mechanisms to correct them, not simply to acknowledge them. Secondly, we need to be clear about defining what harms look like and whose responsibility those may be if they were to be uncovered. If an AI-informed decision causes harm, accountability must not vanish into the algorithm, and this is one of the issues that we often see with the black box phenomenon. Many of these are proprietary technologies. The manufacturers of such technologies want to protect their own corporate interests, and so we actually oftentimes don't get to see how these algorithms and technologies actually function. This is of serious concern. And then third, privacy and data protection are essential, and of course we will have national regulation around these, and similarly we have privacy bodies at the federal, at the provincial, and at the municipal level. But this means to the greatest extent possible, limiting what data is collected, ensuring it is stored properly, and that personal information is never misused. Protecting privacy undoubtedly is not an option, but a cornerstone of democratic policing and should be of concern and deserves to get the attention that it warrants. And of course, none of this can be done in isolation. Inclusive governance and community engagement are critical, hence our being here today. Communities, especially those who've historically borne the brunt of over-policing, for example, or have had historically tenuous relationships with the police, must be directly involved in shaping how AI is introduced, monitored, and evaluated. These guardrails are not barriers to innovation. They are what make innovation responsible, ethical, and sustainable. So, to kind of wrap up and transition, AI is here. There's no doubt about that. And it's going to be increasingly adopted in a multitude of sectors, including policing. Key is ensuring that we do it right, or do it as right as we can. So I encourage those that are here, and I will pass it over to you in just a moment, to keep human rights as a foundation and guardrails as a framework. The only way to ensure that AI in policing truly serves the public good is to keep these in mind. Claudia, thank you.
Hello, I am Claudia McCoy, the founder and principal of Upsurgence. Through direct public engagement and co-design, Upsurgence enables government agencies to collaborate closely with their stakeholders and close connectivity gaps. This also allows those agencies to earn collective buy-in while establishing new policies and innovations. So the purpose of the initiative that I led was to engage with residents of Peel to identify their thoughts, hopes, and concerns surrounding the adoption of AI in general, and to co-design a statement of principles to help guide the adoption of AI here at Peel Regional Police. Therefore, the aim of the initiative was to listen, to inform, to empower, and to collaborate. We did so with various stakeholders, residents mainly, community leaders, local service providers, industry leaders, regulators, and subject matter experts, some who are here today. We dubbed the engagement Peeling Back AI, just to have a little fun with the fact that we were focusing on peel, and we wanted to collectively learn together by peeling back all the complexities of AI. We did so through group discussions. We had an incredible one. I wish you could be a fly on the wall. Len, you were the chair, a fly on the wall for this one based on bias. And as you know, the topic of bias is a very, very strong narrative. To just riff a little bit on what the deputy had to say earlier, and also the professor, literacy came into play because many of us hear on public television, bias, data. But there are multiple different elements that create the systems that create AI tools. For example, there's algorithms, as you mentioned. There are also the models themselves, not just the data that we would have to oversee. So those discussions were dynamic and also highly personal, bringing in their personal and bringing the human element to the whole discussion. We had one-on-ones, mostly with industry leaders and subject matter experts, co-design sessions that included an ecosystem meeting with local service providers, many of them who are partners with Peel Regional Police, seeking to learn how they could be adapting or implementing AI in their organizations alongside Peel Regional Police. And they were also looking at Peel Regional Police as a leader to help make sure that the adoption not only was free from bias and harm, but also served our communities better, which is the real reason of adopting any tool. We also had information sessions, like the one that examined the impact of Bill 194. This is Ontario's Strengthening Cybersecurity and Building Trust in Public Sectors. We had regulators there and leaders of law who were looking at the potential impact of this bill on public sectors, this bill was released back in 2024, sorry. We also looked at other sectors, mainly the healthcare sector, for a lesson learned of how we could learn some information or learn from the other mistakes or the insights of other sectors. We also had a comprehensive survey, and as we mentioned before, we noticed quite quickly that there was actually a literacy gap, and so we created an online portal so that when we invited people to have co-design sessions, they could actually go to a portal with a one-stop on learning about what AI is fundamentally, and we worked really hard to get that language concise and short. Looking at the different tools, machine learning, looking at issues like facial recognition, looking at generative AI. Because this type of intimate, two-way, dynamic engagement was not really heard of before, especially to create something like a statement of principle, which is a novel, to say the least. There was just no blueprint. Yet knowing the complexities of the discussions and discussing AI within communities that have very different levels of understanding and trust surrounding its adoption, I knew that we needed to engage with care and to ensure that we did no harm in the process, and we leverage a lot of creativity to do so. For example, in our first co-design session, I asked participants to take an AI quiz that covered the fundamentals of AI. The result showed that AI literacy varied greatly. They focus on data and bad data and weren't quite familiar with models and algorithms. Scores range between 18 to 91%, revealing knowledge gaps, particularly in AI fundamentals, model evaluations, and the ability to distinguish between different types of AI tools. As the deputy had mentioned earlier, they would say ChatGPT, or what we discovered was that when you ask what was your experience with generative AI, they could say, yes, we have experience, but then they would say, no, we don't have experience with machine learning, when machine learning drives generative AI. So these disconnects are very much prevalent in the community, and it was important to ensure that we help the process of knowledge development. This insight gave us a readiness strategy, as I mentioned before, for our sessions to develop an online knowledge hub, which included and focused on AI governance, a key component, of course, of peeling back AI. However, as it turned out, it was not the technicalities that was at the heart of any of these issues. It was more the basic human narratives that drove these co-design sessions. So instead of the quiz, asking questions like, if AI were a magic wand, which many people see it as a magic wand actually when they speak about it, what would you like its impact to be on your neighborhood? At that point, we shift the discussion away from these, scary models and big discussions to something intimate and tangible, and the room would open up. This is the human grassroots governance narrative starting. And we would get wonderful feedback around how specifically they would like AI to be used to promote the well-being of their community. And it makes sense. This peeling back AI itself has been rooted in an ongoing quest to ensure community experience and insights are directly embedded in public policy at Peel Regional, the Region of Peel and at Peel Regional Police. For example, many of you in the room might know that in 2021, the city of Mississauga had acquired Upsurgence to host a series of community consultations and co-design. You were there too, Deputy, you were. And to really identify and remove systemic barriers to the access of enjoying the city's properties, programs, and resources. After that engagement with hundreds of residents, it was clear to both Deputy O'Doherty and Dr. Brenda McPhail, who was at the time at the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and now is the senior analyst at the senior technology and policy advisor, at the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, and who has continued to be a part of this program and in fact spoke and gave us guidance at our discussion on Bill 194. They came together and they really took and heard the community cry around needing there to be more immersive connection between Peel Regional Police, and also there was a lot of gap around the understanding of AI. I would particularly, on a side note, was really intrigued because Deputy O'Doherty at the time had mentioned how AI could actually be used as a tool to help some of the local programs, and I thought that was something that I wanted to investigate. The two sat down together and came up with 7.5 recommendation for the report, and that called for AI, for immersive consultation regarding AI and policing to be established in a way that was community-driven, a community-driven statement of principle to guide AI adoption within PRP, Peel Regional Police Service Delivery. So I definitely would like to thank you particularly for your guidance on this, and actually not running away from the very difficult and making sure that the process was open It was wonderful to have this project be picked up and guide and basically said, Claudia and your team, be free and get that information and engage with the community and listen. We did just that. So again, thank you for believing and supporting and endorsing this initiative. What has Peeling Back AI garnered? Local, very local data-driven insights. So for example, we had co-design sessions in different areas of Peel, but we also had a survey that had one of the demographics was built out in the back end according to the political wards of the areas of both Brampton and Mississauga. So we could actually start to see different patterns and segment groups, their response and their concepts around and what their priorities are around principles. We also, as I mentioned earlier, developed the will in the community for an ecosystem style collaboration around the adoption of AI within the community as well as within PRP. And of course, North America's first community-driven statement of principles of the use of AI in policing. I cannot find any other organization, protective service, or law enforcement that has been willing to do this type of work as opposed to a complete consultation, but actually this kind of wave-like dynamic two-way and multiple way discussion to capture the data and also welcome people into the process of adoption of AI. There we go. So you will see here that this is the 7 principles, but let me back up just a little bit. So what is a statement of principle? A statement of principles is a document that outlines the core values and boundaries that will govern the activities of an entity or an initiative. The statement of principles, as seen on the screen, results from the public engagement activities from Peeling Back AI. The statement of principle is not a technical manual or a legal statute. Rather, it's a binding in spirit framework that anchors every AI decision to community values, requires transparency and accountability across AI life cycles, prohibits harmful or disproportionate use or targeting, defines how performance, equity, privacy, and public trust will be measured and reported. Thus, the statement of principle guides policy, procurement, vendor contracts, that's all internal, pilot designs, and deployment gates, all as well as training, audit, and remedy, so that a safer community, we have a safer community and respect for rights and advance together. If you see when you look at this arc, you see that I've put transparency at the top. The reason, when we went through a lot of our engagements, we realized that you can't really have many of the community engagement without an openness. So the arc that I report on starts with transparency that allows for the accountability. So when people have access to the information, we can critique the information, just like if the organization, as the professor pointed out, if the operational systems or personnel have access to the back end, then you can make analysis. So openness is at the start. And then we move on to the individual piece where privacy. Privacy was very interesting in how it was addressed. A lot of people were concerned about bias, but they were also concerned about how their data was going to be used. However, many people have gotten used to just clicking away their privacy rights as a convenient. So you started to see different patterns. As I move on, security was one of the top narratives that you would see come through. Ensuring that the systems were safe and reliable were many people's, particularly people who were segmented, believing that police public was the most important public sector in relationship to AI adoption, believe the security of the systems, that they worked reliably, was the direct way to get to and secure human rights. Each principle then formed parts of a larger arc of trust that moves from institutional integrity towards community well-being and upholding our human rights. As I said before, the arc that I have there starts with transparency, moves into accountability with clear oversights and mechanisms with human oversight. That was very, very, very important. And then they moved into privacy with protection of individual rights and data integrity, security to ensure the resiliency and protect against threats. Then we had human rights, human-centered values. It's really interesting because at the end, you will see that all of these principles actually lead back to human rights, right? And so grounded in the human-centered values was grounded in the systems of ethics and lived experience. This is what the engagements and co-design sessions allowed for. Next was efficiencies. It was interesting to note that while people, many of the community leaders and residents really appreciated the concept that AI could be a vehicle for efficiencies, they didn't want that to be in lieu of human rights. And in fact, what I discovered through my engagements was that talking about efficiencies in a quantitative way was less impactful than talking about it in a qualitative way. What does this efficiency lead to, and how does it secure well-being, safety, and human rights? And then, of course, at the top of the arc, where it was the community well-being. Narratives of community well-being at PRP has been very much discussed and explored. At the heart of it was fostering trust, safety, and collective benefit. The narratives, though, there was transparencies, accountabilities. The principles often had supported each other, and in some of the discussions, they actually conflict. As the professor mentioned, on one hand, you can have people who want privacy, especially owners of technologies, and you have community leaders who are driving for human rights, would tend to want more regulations than less. However, that same call for transparency can also have conflict with operations if those operational insights fell in the wrong hand. So these balance, although we know what people want, how those balances come together, or how we actually create that ecosystem that of principles is going to be something that we will have to go and engage on the long term. Okay, all right, thank you. So with that being said, while discussions are definitely necessary, what I discovered in the end was people wanted to move from discussions and into engagement, direct engagement, and they will actually learn more about AI through actually working together on their projects. They seek collaborations with Peel Regional Police as they do seek adoptions in their own organization in a manner, as I said before, that serves the community better.
Awesome. So thank you, Deputy Chief Odwardi, Dr. Professor Owusu-Bampa, and Claudia for kind of kicking off the conversation and setting the context. We wanted all three consultations to be led by subject matter experts so that it will kind of guide the conversations that we intend to have, so that we're not kind of all over the place. The idea of AI is pretty broad, and we wanted to ensure that the feedback we're receiving had context. we're fortunate to have such experts with us. So, but while we are talking to you and demonstrating that we are, as a board and as a service, alive to the risk, the concerns, the fears, the apprehensions, whatever it is that community has about AI, we also want to hear from you. So we will have now a transition to deputations. We do have 2 individuals who will be leading with deputation. So just so you understand kind of what the format will look like, it's not going to be a back and forth Q&A session per se. We want the deputants to have their free opportunity to share their thoughts. Once that's finished, however, those of you who are here and some maybe online may have some questions for our panelists, so we want to leave some time at the end to take some of those questions, because it may be that you're asking a question that we haven't thought about, and we want to ensure that we're including those questions in our thinking as we continue to frame our response, our work within policing and AI. So before I invite the first panelist, deputant, I just want to also introduce my board members who may also be having some feedback or questions for you. So we have other members of our Governance and Human Rights Committee of the board. We have Omar Khan with us this evening, and we have our Vice Chair, Samita Kohli, and our Executive Director, Rob Serpe, who is always great at taking notes and gathering all of what we talk about and putting it in a very concise document to help inform what our response will look like once this is over. So it's not going to be just a talk shop where you come, you speak, and you go away. We gather the information and we put meaning behind it, and we report back to you on what we have learned from what you have shared and how it will impact our work going forward. So the first person is Jayshri Patel Suri. Oh, they're virtual. Okay. So is Jayshri ready to go with his deputation? Just one moment. Okay. We're getting the technology. It's a she? Awesome. Thank you. So while we're doing that, if you have any questions, make sure you're kind of jotting them down, framing those questions. It could be questions primarily for the panelists who presented earlier, or it could just be a general question you have for the board or for the service, things that we should consider that may be on your mind. So you may not have prepared a deputation per se, but you would still like to engage, and we want to leave some space at the end for that. Are we ready to go? No? Technology is impeding us. I wonder then if we should go into some of the questions while we're getting the technology sorted, so we're not just waiting. Are there any questions for our panelists related specifically to what they talked about that we could take now? If you do, just come to the front, raise your hand, come to the front so we can identify you and you can speak in the mic so everyone could hear. That means our presenters were so good, they were so clear that you understand everything. There's no question so far. But I'm also aware that many of these consultations have moments where you're thinking the question and it hasn't come yet. So we'll leave some moments at the end. But I do see one of my board members, Samita Kohli, you have a comment?
Thank you. Sorry, we have a new system in here and we're not used to it. I just wanted to take a minute actually to just thank the professor and Claudia as well. The professor's been on this journey with us now, I think, two years almost, maybe. I feel like, right, Rob, maybe 2 years plus?
Gray hairs to it.
Yeah. But just a great big thank you because, and I'm sure the deputy can attest, I mean, the amount of hands-on work that you have done and been engaged. I just wanted to take a minute to just say thank you to you and Claudia for all the work that you've done. And this was a fantastic presentation. And I think what you've really done is explain it from a ground level up. And I think your engagement and approach was fantastic. So really, thank you for putting that together for all of us tonight. And of course, deputies, you know, him and his team are just, we're very fortunate at Peel, and it's really being driven in the right way. So thank you for recognizing that, and just wanted to acknowledge it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Samita, for comments, feedback there. Waiting on tech. Okay, it's a new system, so we'll be patient until you're ready to go. Okay, Jayshree is ready. Fantastic. Can you hear me, Jayshree? It's over to you. Start whenever you are ready.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jayshree, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Let me start with something simple, but it's very important. We're all human, and that has to stay at the center of everything we do. We are accountable to each other, not machines. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter their background, their appearance, or their circumstances. That's not just a nice idea, that's a foundation for trust. And trust is essential when it comes to public safety. We live in an incredibly diverse city. People here speak different languages, practice different religions, come from different cultures and communities. That's something to be proud of. But let's be honest, our systems don't always reflect that diversity. We have to recognize that data gaps, which will bring biases and blind spots, we've been challenging to fix for years. Let me give you 2 quick examples that highlight what I mean. I once asked an AI tool to generate an image of a diverse boardroom. I was specific: people of different ages, backgrounds, genders, people with disabilities, the kind of room that reflects real life. The result was 1 ethnic group, mostly male, and 2 females. It didn't matter what description I added to the prompt, the result was similar to its previous one. It was eye-opening to see how one version of a prompt, when explored thoroughly, can lead to a range of the same outcome. It was also frustrating and a little heartbreaking, because even when we try to build in inclusion, these systems often can't recognize it, or worse, they erase it. Second, a case of mistaken identity. We are aware of sophisticated scams that use every recognizable feature of a human being without their knowledge. The average person is challenged to decipher who is real and what is a hyper-realistic AI-generated person. In real life, we are accountable for our actions. We are responsible for protecting our privacy and our interests that are within our control. The same is asked from those who serve to protect our community while utilizing AI. AI can be a tool, but it should never be the judge. That's why there always needs to be a human in the loop, someone who can listen, who can ask questions, who can be held accountable when a criteria is questionable. Because if no one's responsible, then where does the trust go? I'm asking the board, 1, let technology support, not replace the human side of policing. 2, make sure real people from real communities are involved in how these systems are designed and used. And 3, and above all, keep accountability human, always. We all want to live in safer communities. We all want to trust the systems that are meant to protect us, but that trust won't come from algorithms. It comes from people, from leadership, transparency, and care. Let's not lose sight of that as we move forward. Thank you for your time and for your attention.
Awesome. Thank you, Jayshree. Please stay online. We have panelists who presented earlier, and hopefully you heard them. And we also have other board members and members of our Governance and Human Rights Committee. So is there anyone with any kind of feedback for Jayshree? Any comments? I'd welcome just request to speak, and or technologists will get you on. Yes, I see Dr. Aobi.
Thank you for those remarks.
Hold on. when it turns red. Go now.
It's green. Green usually means go. If I get pulled over driving home from this meeting, I am calling someone to say that my red and greens have been turned around. I really appreciate your comments. I think much of what you've said aligns with some of what the points I'd made, and you've expanded upon those. And really struck by your comment around the generative AI in particular, the image generators, and attempts to have the tool generate a diverse boardroom. I think we've seen this a number of times in going both ways, right? Elon Musk's AI tool was impersonating Hitler for a period of time. On the other hand, I think it was Google's that had generated images of black Vikings when prompted to develop pictures of Vikings, because it was trying to engender more equity into the model, perhaps, than Elon Musk. So these are specifically, the exact type of challenges that the developers of these tools and those that are implement them are going to have to face, right? Especially when we're talking about something as so consequential as policing, and one in which there have been such great concerns around issues of equity. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you, Dr. Ayabi. And something you also said, Jeshri, that resonated with me, and I think it was a theme throughout your presentation, and that's the value of the human element, and making sure that humans are always in the loop and providing oversight. And Claudia had mentioned that in her presentation also, so clearly there's an alignment there between your thoughts and some of the things that we are including in our discovery as we talk to community. That theme is coming through loud and clear about the value of not replacing humans with machine, but having oversight of machine as it helps us with efficiency. So thank you for your thoughts. I see also Samita Kohli has a further comment.
It's red. Is that good? Okay. First of all, Jeshri, thank you so much for taking the time today and speaking at the consultation. I think one important point you made is also the trust in the information coming back. And I think that's something that we're starting to see. I mean, like you said, right, you inputted certain data points and it kept giving you back information a certain way. And I think we're still a long way to be in that. Now, what's scary today is there are many who are taking that data as fact. And it's a little scary. So I don't think we're anywhere close to where we need to be, but I'm glad you brought that up as a really good example of, I think I've seen that as well, is sometimes you put these inputs and then you're like, well, is that really accurate? Because it's not based on what you've learned and understood. So good point, and thank you for sharing that today.
I would just also like to add to that, when researching the AI tool that will service the Police Services Board with respect to their plan, one of the concerns I have is that there are so many companies and developers out there across the world, so their data sets would be reflective, and their control points would be of their own countries and culture and ways. So, I mean, Canada is very dynamic and unique with respect that we're a huge multicultural, diverse population. And I don't feel that we would find data sets or, resources or tools that would properly and accurately, as best as possible, reflect our culture.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Claudia.
To thank you, Jay, for all the work you did and your participation in peeling back AI. You did a lot of work in Malton, and so I thank you. I wanted just to give a little bit of background. There was one co-design moment when we were asking the question, and it's interesting that you brought up Tesla. We asked who's responsible if a self-driving car went awry, and the group was divided, and Jay was like, "It's the human. It's always the human. We need it to be the human that takes accountability at every time." And I watched how discussion by discussion, that the whole entire room came on to board with that definition. So I just want to just acknowledge the work that, the participation that you did in making many of our sessions dynamic. So thank you so much for your participation.
See, I have to learn the red and green too. Thank you again, Jayshree. Feel free to stay on for the second deputation that we will have. And please stay connected to the process and give us all the feedback going forward. Thanks again.
Thank you
So
very
our
much for
second-
listening to me.
Awesome, thank you. Our second deputant is Jawad Haroon. Is Jawad up and ready to go? Fantastic, I get a thumbs up over there. So whenever you are ready, Jawad, we are ready for you.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Very good. That's good to know. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm actually just logging in because I plan to sort of log in and basically provide some commentary on this topic. I was lucky enough to be involved in one of these public discussions that we had with Claudia. And I found them very fruitful. And I was happy to see the AI is coming in, or it has been, at least being discussed in terms of getting incorporated into policing. I would say that I'll basically kind of repeat what I said in those discussions as well, in those public discussions. Obviously, I don't come from the policing world. My connection to policing is not strong at all, if any. Other than the fact that maybe there's something, some weak connection through my significant other. At one point, was involved in law enforcement. I see AI. Obviously, it's the talk of the town, and of course it has a role to play in almost every aspect of our lives, and in sort of different disciplines and different fields, professions whatsoever. As in engineering, we're looking at AI and how we can kind of utilize AI to be more productive at our jobs. Not necessarily, no one's really is that scared that AI will take away our jobs or anything like that. It's more to how we utilize AI to be more productive and deliver value at work. Same thing as a professor. We're looking at how we can use AI and different tools, AI-based tools to teach and include AI in learning. Similarly, in policing, I see from this conversation that there's a lot of discussion around AI and how we can utilize, develop products that we can use. So of course there's a lot of hope and optimism, and at the same time, I would say, and forgive me because like I said, I wasn't there for the earlier discussions that may have taken place, but I would say that given the fact that policing and in sort of how it's often perceived by different communities, and we just have to tread carefully here. We just have to make sure that when we're looking into sort of developing products or tools, AI-based tools to be used in policing, I think we really need to, right at that start, right at the get-go, have some sort of parameters that we can agree upon, not necessarily from the organization that's creating these products, but rather from maybe a higher body like a regulator or even government. I think we need to sort of set some parameters that we can use as guidelines, and sort of make sure that we are we're staying within those boundaries while we still able to obviously deliver value and enhance public policing. And I think part of these tools development must include some sort of a way to validate how we in terms of if we're looking into the predictive end of things and how we might be using some tools to predict stuff, I think there needs to be some sort of an effort to validate for accuracy and biases, and sort of continuous monitoring to see how these accuracy and biases are changing based on sort of new data and nuances, and there's someone there to monitor these changes for the long run. So yeah, these two comments kind of similar to what I said in my when I was at the public discussion on these topics. Yep. Thank you. That's all from my end. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome, and thank you for taking the time to engage. Again, the more we hear from community, the more we can understand community feelings on these things, which is why the board led this community consultations, to hear from you. So we definitely appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts, not just here, but also in the smaller group chats that were being done and led by Claudia. So again, I want to just open it up for any of the panelists or any of the board members to react in any way to what Jawad has presented. Any thoughts? No, there are no other questions or thoughts for you at this point, Jawad. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing.
No problem. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. So I did point out earlier that I wanted to leave some space for those who are in the room who may have by now thought of the question that you had and now have the courage to ask it. Feel free. You took the time to be here. There's a reason why you're here. You could be doing something else, but you took some time to come and engage. So I'm sure there is a question, a concern, something that you're thinking about as it relates to AI. I would not want to leave some space for you to be able to share those thoughts or questions at this time before we wrap up. We want to give you back some time this evening, but I also want to leave space so that if there's someone who want to speak. Anyone? I do see a hand. Perfect. Just if you could come to the front here. So, there is a little thing on the desk to press, and when that microphone turns red, you're good to go. Just introduce yourself for us, please, before you start.
So my name's Paul Ackerman. I'm the enterprise architect, security and infrastructure for the city of Brampton. I am not representing the city. So I just found out about this about a week and a half ago. So I deal with security, privacy, and some AI through my role with IT at the city. I've worked on some projects with police, the body cams, and other security projects. But I've really been getting into the privacy part of it right now. So one of the questions I have is, what are the contexts that PRP is looking to introduce AI into, right? Because I did find something on the policingproject.org about the 7 main areas. I'm just wondering, has PRP gone that far to figure out where they want to introduce AI, right? Other than, possibly report writing or, DNA analysis, because obviously we want to avoid the Clearview AI issue that we had earlier in Canada, and also the Walgreens issue in the States where they lost the use of the technology for 5 years because of the bias on that.
Yes.
And the other question is, how are you planning to meet the transparency and accountability principles that you had mentioned? And I do like that because we're trying to do our AI strategy governance at the city as well. And that's it's just like spinning tires in the mud right now, right? So, but those are my two main questions, right?
Thank you.
I will deal with the security and privacy on the November the 4th, because that's sort of my area of expertise.
Great. And we're glad you're already making a commitment to come back. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll take the two questions. Again, the intent today is not to have all the answers.
No,
but our
that's
deputy
fine.
chief is here, and he may have some early reactions that he would want to share in response to the questions. But again, it may not be the full answer, because that's why we're here to listen. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting that because, you know, certain items you cannot delve too deep.
Right.
Otherwise, it's an operational issue. Right.
Right.
So,
Perfect. Thank you so much. You said Paul
Yes.
Ackerman?
Paul Ackerman. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Anthony, you want to?
Sure, and thank you for the questions, Mr. Ackerman. They're very thoughtful, and I do appreciate that. I do want to give you a high-level overview because I do think the context in which AI applications in public safety, specifically here in Peel Region, are being thoughtfully implemented. First, I want to make a commitment that this is less about efficiency, to be quite honest, and more about community safety and well-being and community being. It's about the tools that will keep the community safer and also be able to train our officers, and we didn't mention that in our presentation, to better serve the community. That is, to understand data, for instance. So the context in which AI is considered and being considered in Peel Region is for community safety and well-being. Now, you did reference one of the initiatives that is up and going, which does utilize AI, and there were several consultations on, which is facial recognition. And you mentioned Clearview, and certainly that very high profile and proper use of that very public tool, which uncertainly had some damage throughout the community. And so these are the uses that we see in terms of artificial intelligence tools. We talked about the proprietary tools or the specific tool sets, more used for community safety and well-being applications versus efficiency applications. And then the last piece is that the implementation will continue. The engagement sessions aren't over, specifically from an AI, peeling back the AI, the 7 principles that you saw earlier that were displayed in relation to governance and standards that will be adopted here. But that will garner consultation and conversation with the community related to the tools that we plan to implement in the future. And those can range anything from a 911 center call to get us to the doorstep of someone in the worst moment of their entire lives, quicker, safer, with context, and also understanding data better, to eliminate, using AI to help eliminate data biases. And just to double down on the fact, and we've heard it from a couple of our deputants, so certainly we've heard it from the professor and Claudia, and it is in all my AI implementation strategies, is the concept of a human in the loop. There will never be an AI implementation at Peel Regional Police without one or several human guardrails involved in the decision-making, and I like to call it the AI fusionist, where we work alongside, with, and over and above the AI tool in particular. So hopefully that at a high level answers most of your questions, and thank you for coming.
Awesome. Thank you, Deputy Chief. Anyone else? Going once? There you go. Sometimes just a little delay gives the opportunity for someone to speak. I think we are still ahead of time, so again, just introduce yourself and then your comments.
Is it on? Oh, hello. Hi. Hi, my name is Patricia Williams. I'm a lifelong resident in Peel and also a member of Peel Police's Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. Thank you very much for the presentation this evening and the opportunity to ask questions. I have a couple. I'll start with the first one. The first question that I have, and I know Paul alluded to this a little bit, in terms of what future plans are, but what currently does Peel Regional Police have in terms of AI in the organization presently? Is there any AI already being used?
Before the Deputy Chief answers, maybe it would be better if we kind of get all the questions and then he responds all at once. Would that work?
Sure, yeah, if that works for you. There are different questions, so I didn't want to confuse him. Sure, so the second question is, how will Peel Police control for harms? And I know you mentioned a little bit about human guardrails, but are there any other considerations about how to control for this?
Okay, well, I will certainly answer the first and second question. And off the top of my head, in terms of AI implementation, I mentioned a couple. One of the most impactful AI implementations have come in our 911 call center. 2 years ago, if you called 911 in Peel, you were waiting about 2 minutes on hold for a 911 call to be answered. The federally mandated Next Generation 911 mandated and legislated police services across, not police services, 911 operation centers across Canada to switch over to a more modern system, an IP-based system, Internet Protocol-based system from the old copper line system. So that allowed us to address a very concerning issue here in Peel, which delayed the answering of the calls, was misuse calls. 1 million calls through the operations center, 400,000 were misuse calls. We use artificial intelligence to address the misuse calls and the callbacks so that we are now answering calls in under 12 seconds. And that's one application. Another application is the highly publicized facial recognition program that we engaged community with last year, including yourself and ARAC, several community sessions, and explained how facial recognition is being utilized very much unlike the Clearview mechanism that occurred many years ago. And that's another application. We have automated license plate readers in our vehicles to address carjackings, stolen vehicles, and also suspended drivers. So these are the types of applications that are built-in existing technologies that we are utilizing now. In the future, the types of applications that we will look to and consult with are mainly around data applications. And we will not do that now because we want to your second question, understand realistically how we can prevent harms to community with any of the existing data that we have collected in the previous decades. And we know that all the data that we collect across all systems, in fact, not just here in public safety, but in health, in education, across all systems, has some bias in it. And we want to understand what those biases are prior to the application of artificial intelligence on those data sets. And this is why I talked about the AI fusionist approach, as I call it here in Peel. It's humans not just working with AI, but alongside AI and over top of AI. And that is not necessarily a police personnel working with the application implementation of AI. Perhaps it's community members and the reporting, auditing of how AI is being used in the police service.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia, for coming. I have the pleasure of working with Patricia through her work on our Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. Thank you for the work you do there also. For the benefit of those in the room, the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, ARAC, provides the community oversight, if you will, of the recommendations, the implementation of the recommendations that relate to our human rights project. And the committee has been in place for, I want to say, 2.5, 3 years now, that helped frame those recommendations and now is responsible for the oversight as PRP goes through the process of implementing them. So that's certainly a lot of commitment from community members to be engaged in that process over such a long time. I also see other members of ARAC here in the room. Sophia, good to see you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your time and your contribution through to ARAC and to your community at large. I don't see any other hands. Oh, I do see one now. Okay, perfect. I think the courage is coming now.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Firstly, thank you very much for holding this excellent webinar, seminar. Very pleased and humbled to be here in the room and learn from our esteemed panelists and deputants. My question is actually reiterating something to what our deputy chief has already shared. I'm maybe more curious about learning as to where do we draw a guardrail when it comes to collecting data and also align it with individual privacy rights. So we have the guardrails, we have the oversight, and we have the human being behind the computer screen to have that kind of oversight when it comes to collection of data. If I key in, as one of our deputants shared with us, some keywords, and AI generates a lot of information which may or may not be required or needed and may hinder and contradict with one's individual privacy rights. How will an individual or myself as a citizen ensure what kind of governance audits that I have, that the person behind the screen will be able to gauge and sense that I must not use this information? And how do we actually discard that information? Thank you.
That's an interesting question, and not necessarily one specifically at policing, if I understand the question correctly, around even, how do you protect yourself, right? So maybe one of our experts on AI could just react to that. I don't know if there's like a full answer per se, but giving some context for that, either of our panelists.
Maybe I can start, and then I can talk and
I would just like to add, yes, it is a general question, but when it comes just to align more from the policing perspective, we do generate a lot of information when we are actually doing real crime analysis and also doing predictive policing. So at that time, if we are trying to stop crime and if we are trying to stop harm to the community, there might be a scenario in future or near future where we are actually trying to collect a lot of information which may or may not be useful, or which may actually hinder and contradict with privacy rights. So the question is, how will we ensure that the person who is actually responsible for the oversight will be able to gauge that and discard that information or not use it? If that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. And I'll take some reactions from our panelists, and that would be kind of the last person participating this evening.
Okay, and thank you. And I do understand the question. It's very clear to me, and so thank you for repeating it. Maybe I can analogize it with another program we have at Peel Regional Police, which garnered a lot of interest about 4 years ago, was the implementation of body-worn camera.
Yeah.
And the amount of information and digital information a body-worn camera collects, how private that information is, just not when it's captured in the public, but perhaps in someone's home, place of worship. Rules and guidance and governance around those have to be so strictly adhered to. And then again, the oversight has to be in place to ensure that the community, while being protected by body-worn camera, feels also protected by body-worn camera. And what we have done in that case, and we will be also following a similar path, is to provide transparent public reporting on all uses of AI data-driven sets. You use the term predictive policing. It's not, it's a US term certainly that, but it is used in Canada. But along with that would come the reporting of those data sets. How are they being used? What are the results? So we use the term KPIs. To achieve performance results, but what are the impacts? What are the complaints around the data? Who has potentially been harmed? What are the investigations that have occurred because of potentially improper use? And those are all the same type of auditing and reporting that we have a body-worn camera transparently to the board, not just on a yearly basis, but throughout the year. So we would take a very similar approach, and I could probably turn it over right now to what that may look like from some of the consultations that have occurred, and of course, with Dr. AOB here, what he has realized in his academic studies.
Thank you.
Just waiting for the stoplight to come on so I can start talking. So your question is a very good one, and in some ways a complex one, depending again on the application and then the type of data. You know, you've used the example of predictive policing, right? Which is, again, it's a complicated one. There, like what data is going in is historical crime data, right? And then perhaps some other as well, but it's using that historical data. You mentioned kind of inaccuracies in information. And so we can think about this in the context of actually, you know, much of what the police do is collect, you know, huge amounts of information, and then that has to be entered. And so there need to be, you know, simple checks on data quality, period. Those are, of course, going to be magnified if that information is then going to be utilized for some kind of consequential purpose. So, you know, my response would be the actual, like, oversight function of an individual is going to differ, of course, based on, like, the application at hand. But it would be exactly those type of checks. Now, you know, there are data that are going to enter into a system that are going to be inaccurate because unless they are flagged appropriately, right, they're going to slide through, and that is inevitably going to happen. But I think that, again, ensuring that we're aware of these issues and that those individuals are in place are the types of commitments that we should be making at this point. And that's, yeah, I think all that I can say, because it is, you know, we're talking in some ways conceptually at the moment, given where we're at. But I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. By the way, I didn't introduce myself. So my name is Varsha Dinodia.
Yes.
My background is actually from governance, finance, and audits. And I have been a catalyst in doing a lot of system audits. Not as yet in public sector. My background is predominantly into private sector. And sometimes I believe that it is actually a leverage or an advantage when you actually come and ask questions from no man's land, when you do not know many things or you do not know anything, and you are asking a question which will give you food for thought. Mm-hmm. So my background is predominantly private sector, but I'm slowly maneuvering my career into private investigations. But till now, so far, I've just done audits. And I'm very humbled to be here and learn from everyone, and looking forward to being connected. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Varsha, for taking the time. I see you have also triggered additional responses from our panelists, from Claudia and also Dr. AOB.
I think Dr. AOB would like to add something also. Yeah, Claudia, go ahead, please.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad to hear that you're in audit around these issues. I would like to add just two layers. From the consultations, it was really important, and it became obvious that the definition of harm is not static, right? So there is what was harmful today may not be harmful tomorrow, or may be harmful in a very different way. So the information loop and having consultations with the community, where the community has the chance to also define harm, and also to look at the fact that a happening will have asymmetrical impacts. And that's the reason why we started to look at analyzing neighborhood by neighborhood and segment by segment analysis around people's thoughts and concepts around harm. Because what we had discussions around was that what may be harmful in Malton may not have the same impact in Lakeshore. So we want to make sure that what makes the deployment of and the engagement of communities here in Peel was that we did a very intimate engagement process so that we had an intimate definition and understanding of what harm means in our communities.
Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Claudia. I'll see Dr. AOB.
I'll just very quickly say, after having raised the audit piece, and the deputy has made this point, not alluded to, but clearly is that AI itself can be utilized to conduct audits and data quality and assurance checks, right? Obviously. And so then again, it's where's the human in the loop on the audit check for the quality of the data to feed into another. So I think that's part of where you were going, but I just wanted to close that circle, square that circle as well. Thank you.
Thank you very
Awesome.
much, everyone. Thank you.
And thank you, Varsha, for spending some time with us and bringing us these thought-provoking questions. And we'll take last comment from Samita Kohli.
Oh, it went right? Yeah. I just wanted to take a minute to just acknowledge a couple of individuals also in the audience. So I wanted to recognize Councillor Martin Reed is also here, and thank you for being here today. And he's always very engaged, and I know he watches all of our board meetings as well, but thank you for all the work you do and being so engaged in the process as well. So thank you. And I also wanted to recognize Staff Superintendent Dirk Nile. He's also here. So Dirk does a lot of work behind the scenes, and we're very grateful for all that he does. And thank you so much for all your help on this project. Thank you so much.
Awesome, and we started with a thank you, and we're ending with a thank you. Those are great bookends for a meeting. So thank you for your time, for your engagement, for your involvement, and your contributions to our conversation. Like we said earlier, this is the first of 3 community consultations. We look forward to your further engagement when we meet again in October. Thanks again. Have a great evening, everyone.